We begin with Allah's blessed name. We praise Him and we glorify Him as He ought to be praised and glorified, the one God, and we pray for peace and blessings on all His noble messengers. I am honored today to respond to these questions posed to me by Egalité and Reconciliación in this interview, which perhaps has been planned for a long time now. I'm here in Geneva, where I used to be a student many, many years ago. I'm happy to be back here in Geneva, and it's just across the border from France, and that's how it's possible for us to have this interview. There are about 18 or 19 questions which have been posed to me, and I'd probably need 1 week to answer them. We don't have a week. So we'll simply try to answer those which can be answered within the 45 minutes that we have at our disposal today. Question 1 is a very interesting question. Many French people agree to the fact that General Charles de Gaulle was the last major figure in the political history of France. According to you, what would he say about the situation in his country today? Well, I do agree that General Charles de Gaulle does occupy that paramount position as the last major political leader in France. What makes him so famous, what makes him a figure whose name will continue to resonate in history, was his insistence on independence and freedom. He wanted his France to be an independent country. He wanted his France to have freedom, to act in a manner which was in interest of France to act. And that he did not want his country to become an appendage or a client of anyone. That is what made him so famous. I think the defining moment in Charles de Gaulle's history as a leader was not his decision to withdraw from Algeria. No. The defining moment in Charles de Gaulle's history as a political thinker and leader came when he stood up in the French National Assembly, perhaps in 1966, if I'm not wrong, and he analyzed the international monetary system and he denounced it as unjust. He was the first major leader to have done such a thing. It took an enormous amount of courage to do what he did. It also required insight, and he had that insight. That insight comes only when there is internal integrity. And so the general must have been a man with some internal integrity to get that insight. It took courage to speak the way he did. And since de Gaulle, we have had boys. We don't have men anymore, with the courage to stand up and proclaim the truth in the face of a tyrant. What we have today is a monetary system which has hijacked the world of money. This is violent language that I've used, hijacker. And they have hijacked the world of money with a bogus and fraudulent monetary system, because their master plan is to use the control of this monetary system to be able to control the world, to be able to enslave the world. And de Gaulle, by standing up in the National Assembly of France and denouncing that monetary system, meant that he was on a collision course with those who want to rule the world by hook or by crook. And that's why they had to get rid of him. And they did get rid of him in the referendum, which he lost, and then he retired gracefully until he died. What would he say had he been alive today? It's very plain and clear that he would also be today as eloquent and as courageous as he was at that time in denouncing the monetary system, which is even more bogus, even more fraudulent today than it was in 1966. It was in 1971 that Bretton Woods collapsed. It was in 1974 that the petrodollar monetary system was born. And since 1974, even the sky is not the limit. You can print as many US dollars as you want. You can even dream, if you want, of figures. There is nothing to stop you. There is a limitless number of US dollars that can be created, and that gives to the United States the capacity to exploit the rest of the world to its own advantage, to be able to establish itself and maintain itself as the preeminent power in the whole world. Pax Americana never had a better day than on that day when the petrodollar was born. De Gaulle would have denounced it. De Gaulle would have struggled against it. De Gaulle would have been struggling to try to recover monetary independence for France and monetary justice for France in particular, and of course for the rest of the world. Had he been alive today, they probably would wish he could be sent to Guantanamo. Question number 2. The farmers in France are currently in a situation of economic despair. Europe is on the brink of negotiating a transatlantic treaty with the United States of America without any consultation of the people whatsoever. What is your advice to the people that are concerned about the quality of the food that they eat, about the welfare of those who harvest the land, and about the need to return to a virtuous local economy? Answer. We in Islam have been given from the Qur'an and from the life of the Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessings be upon him, the concept of a free and a fair market. It is because of this absolute insistence on a free and a fair market that the Lord God has ordered that the hand of the thief must be cut off. If we were to cut off the hands of thieves today, you would have very few bankers in the world left today, because the banking system is legalized theft. The money lender doesn't only lend money in order to make himself rich at your expense. The money lender also lends money sometimes in order to maintain control over you and to eventually enslave you. Their objective is to establish the absolute dominion over the whole world, the land, the sea, the air. The absolute dominion over the whole of mankind, politically, economically, etc., monetarily, etc. And as a consequence, what we are now seeing in the economy, in the farming economy, in food crops and so on, is going to get worse and worse, worse and worse. As the noose around the neck of mankind tightens. Why is there this obsession on ruling the world and forcing the submission of all of mankind to their diktat? And that, of course, includes Greece. That also includes China. It includes Russia. That all must bend and submit. Why are they doing this? The answer, of course, is located in eschatology, that they want to rule the world so that they could hand over that rule of the world to the state of Israel, so that Pax Judaica might replace Pax Americana. And when Pax Judaica is established, that eventually a claim will be made by someone to be the true Messiah. And that will be the culmination of the entire story. But he would not be the true Messiah. The true Messiah is the son of the Virgin Mary. There are two people, only two people in the world, who believe that Jesus was the true Messiah. There are only two people in the world who believe that Jesus will return. There are only two people in the world who believe that when Jesus returns, truth will triumph over all rivals, and that when Jesus returns, justice will prevail over injustice and oppression. Those two people are Muslims and Christians. One part of the Christian world, however, is becoming very lukewarm. They are increasingly believing that, well, he's not coming back in person, in flesh and blood, that the return of Jesus is something spiritual, not material. But another part of the Christian world and the world of Islam believes that Jesus will return in person. In fact, Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessings be upon him, said that when Jesus returns, he's going to get married and he'll have children. I hope he marries a Palestinian girl. Yes. And so they want to rule the world in order that the false Messiah, or Dajjal, might rule the world from Jerusalem. And this is why they need this control over the economy. People, if they are free from want, they are living a happy life, they have enough food to eat, they have shelter, they have clothing, they're not in debt, then people can have the freedom to be able to resist the oppressor. But if they don't have that freedom, they don't have food, they don't have clothing, they don't have shelter, they are in debt, they are independents like the people of Greece, you can then impose your will upon them. You can force their submission, as the European Union has forced the submission of the Greek government which just resigned. And this is why there is this attack on the economy. What should we do? The answer is, de Gaulle would have said, you must preserve your economic independence. If it cannot be done at the macro level, because those who rule over you are puppets of the Zionist world, then what you have to do is look for micro solutions. And the micro solution will be to get out of Paris. Leave Paris to the Zionists. Get out of the cities. Leave the cities to the Zionists. Let them wash their own dirty clothing. And go into the remote countryside. Disperse. Do not remain in big communities. No. Try to establish small communities and make these small communities self-sufficient in food production. Oh, the rulers of the world are going to grind their teeth in absolute anger and frustration because you're going to be getting out of their grip. They want you in Paris because they know you can't produce your own food in Paris. They want you in Paris because they can control a large group. But when you leave Paris and you go out into the remote countryside and you are in small communities, hundreds and thousands and millions of small communities, they can't digest their food anymore. They are so frustrated because they can't deal with a million small communities. And in these small communities, you plant your own food and you become self-sufficient. And don't eat genetically modified food. Provide your children with pure food, and pure milk and pure meat. That is my answer to the French farmer. Question number 3. In France, we have suicides because of economic despair and various aggressions. The country is getting more and more bitter because of massive layoffs. Can you speak of a pound of flesh taken from the people? Why is it so? Oh, yes, of course. Agriculture is not going to be allowed to remain independent. The banker wants to take his pound of flesh even from the farmer, because the banker wants to control the world. The bank wants to control the world, including the economy, including agriculture. The first lesson you must learn if you are to respond successfully, is to never, never, never borrow money on interest. Never do that. If you cannot get a loan which is a charitable loan, then get a business loan, but must be without interest. If you have a loan without interest and you cannot repay the loan, then of course there's something like bankruptcy, and you will be seized, or your property will be seized and so on, to pay off the loan. But when you take a loan on interest, and when it is compound interest, you sign your debt warrant. That's what they did in Latin America. They would lend money to the Indian peasants, and when they could not repay, then they had to repay with labor. So they didn't have slavery, they had a different form of slavery. The enslavement of the masses through usury. The Qur'an has prohibited usury. It was also in the Bible, but someone rewrote the Bible to say that it is prohibited for an Israelite to lend money on interest to another Israelite. Don't do that. Don't rip off your own brother. But the new version of the Word of God, written by human hands, is that it is permissible for you to lend money and interest to those who are not Israelites. No. That's false. And the Qur'an denounces it as false. This permission given in the Bible to lend money and interest to those who are not Israelites. Don't rip off your own brother, but you can rip off others. No, that's double standards. So we say to the farmer, do not borrow money on interest, number one. Number two, try to always remain out of debt. Number three, if you have the means to help your brother to get out of debt, that's the best gift you can give to him. Don't buy a gift for him for Christmas. No. The best gift you can give to your brother is to help him to get out of debt. The Zionist who rules the world today would be very angry with you because he does not want to have people who are independent of debts, who don't have debts, who are therefore free. And so my answer is to stay out of debt. And most of all, stay out of usury or riba. Can you comment on France's absolutely irresponsible foreign policy? It is not haphazard. The foreign policy of France is no different from the foreign policy of the United States of America, no different from the foreign policy of Britain and of Germany and of Canada and of Australia. None at all. The Prophet said, Allah's blessings be upon him, al-kufru millatun wahida. The world of oppression is all united. The oppressors are all united. They may offer a slightly different face over here and a slightly different face over there, but that's only to throw dust in your eyes. When they sit down together, they're all bloodsuckers, all of them. And the foreign policy is one which is formulated in order to establish and maintain their rule over the world, by the hook or by the crook. However, they plan their plans, and Allah planned His plans. And today we have a force in the world which has emerged in the wake of the collapse of communism in the Soviet Union, a Russia which is returning to its spiritual home, to Orthodox Christianity, a Russia which is a nuclear power, and a Russia which is not afraid of the moneylender, not afraid of the oppressor. A Russia which is prepared to stand up and resist oppression. And a Russia which is leading the way in bringing others to join with it, in offering to mankind an alternative to the oppressive monetary system, for example, which we have in the petrodollar monetary system. Russia is the leader of BRICS, and Russia has China with it. And the Chinese-Russian alliance is growing day by day. Can't hide it anymore. India is a big country, an important country. South Africa is big and important. Brazil is big and important. But none of these are heavyweights compared to China and Russia. And so BRICS is certainly an eloquent and a powerful response to the reckless foreign policy of France, of Germany, of the United States, and all the rest. And it is going to lead to war. It is going to lead to nuclear war. The bandits who now rule the world, they don't care. Even if most of mankind were to be killed, they don't care. They have to force the submission of Russia and China to them. And Russia and China are not afraid of them. Russia and China are not going to bend their knees. No. So it doesn't matter whether you agree with Imran Hosein or you don't. That's irrelevant. Nuclear war is coming. And nuclear war is coming because the bandits who now rule the world are not content to allow Russia and China to remain independent. No, you must submit. Since Russia and China are not afraid and not prepared to submit, then the response to this reckless and irresponsible foreign policy is that all of mankind are now doomed to face nuclear war tomorrow. What is the world going to be like after the war? I don't know. There's never been a nuclear war in history. But those who support the French government, and those who support the American government, and those who support the banking establishment, we say to them, you better try to find a way to solve your problems, because we're not afraid of death. If death is to come, we accept it. But I believe you're afraid of death. And that's what's coming to you now with nuclear war. We now turn to question 5, which is, some men in France, such as Alain Soral and Dieudonné, undergo several trials and massive financial penalties for speaking words that displease the government. And both are portrayed as vicious anti-Semites. Can you comment on this? Answer. The Jewish religion must be respected. Do not speak disrespectfully about Judaism. No. In Islam, we have a tradition born from the Qur'an and from the way of the Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, to speak respectfully of Judaism. And therefore, there is no question about being disrespectful to Jews. No. It is when someone acts in an oppressive way, someone acts as an advocate of falsehood and is attacking the truth. Only then do you respond. If most of the Jews in the world today, unfortunately, are supporters of the oppressive state of Israel, then it becomes necessary for us to denounce it. But that does not mean that we are denouncing Judaism. No, that does not mean that we are being critical of Jews because of their beliefs in Judaism. Not at all. What it does mean is that we are denouncing people who are acting oppressively. I would like to go beyond that to say that they are hijacking Judaism. That the Jewish religion, which we have known for 1,000 years, the Jews were living as guests of the Muslim world. that Jewish religion was not oppressive. Jews and Muslims lived together in fraternity for 1,000 years until the Zionist movement came and took the Jews out of the world of Islam and sent them or shipped them to Israel. So we never had a Judaism that was an oppressor. We never experienced a Judaism that was bitterly hostile to Islam. We never experienced that for 1,000 years. So what we are saying is that Judaism is today being hijacked, and there are some Jews who will agree with that. If Alain Soral or if Dieudonné or other figures in France or in Europe are in any way guilty of speaking disrespectfully about the Judaism or the Jewish religion, then we ask of them to correct your mistakes. But if they have spoken respectfully about Judaism, and if the critical comments are in no way related to the religion and the religious beliefs, except for scholarly disagreements, then what they are doing is denouncing oppression, denouncing injustice and lies. And anyone who does that is standing up for the truth. These are men of integrity. That's what Charles de Gaulle did when he stood up in the French National Assembly. And so these are men who are heroes and who must be honored and respected, who stand up in the face of the oppressor and who denounce oppression. Let us now turn to question number 5. Unemployment and austerity are hitting several European countries since the time of the reinforcement of the European power structures ruling over the states. What can you say on the European construction, its economic policy, and the European Central Bank? The bandits who want to rule the world need to organize mankind into blocks, big blocks. And that would facilitate the effort of ruling the masses. And that's why you had the European Union, the European Community. The one thing in the world they don't want is decentralization. They don't want the world to be returning to small groups all over the world, because it's impossible to rule the world that way. And so the emergence of the European Union forms part of the master plan through which they can rule the world. The process of creating the European Union is one in which political union was not the major goal. The major goal was economic union, and within economic union, the major goal was monetary union. And in monetary union, it was the birth of the euro. The euro was created to enslave Europe. The euro was created so that the banker can enslave the whole of Europe. It is too late now for Greece to understand what Greece should have understood 30 years ago. That the euro was created to enslave Europe, so that the bankers can enslave Europe. And if we are to respond to this economic slavery, the enslavement of the masses, I think it is necessary for us to educate the people as to what is money, what constitutes money, what is money with integrity, and try to explain to them the need to get out of the euro, get out of the monetary system, the petrodollar monetary system, and get out of the government control. And this can only be done through decentralization and withdrawal from the centers of power. The withdrawal to the remote countryside in small communities which are self-sufficient in food production. Number 7, the root of the world economic crisis grows in what we call riba in Islam, or usury. Are we witnessing the ultimate agony of a system which is rotten to the core? Of course. Absolutely correct. A monetary system based on bogus and fraudulent and utterly haram or illegal paper, plastic, and electronic money can only corrupt and destroy a free and a fair market. Our goal must always be to seek to restore and preserve a free and a fair market. If we allow this monetary system to continue, then what happens is that money will be siphoned off from the masses to a predatory blood-sucking elite who will grow richer and richer, and the masses will grow poorer and poorer. This happens particularly when money loses value. I've just come from Malaysia, where the Malaysian ringgit has lost value dramatically over the last 2-3 weeks or more. What happens when money loses value is that prices will rise. It's called inflation. And as prices rise, then the poor are the ones who are going to be hit, most of all. The poor will become poorer until they become destitute. And when the masses become destitute, it leads to violence, when they'll seek to take by force what they need to survive. So violent crimes will escalate. And as violence escalates, the society begins to destabilize and to unravel. This is precisely what the bandits want. They want the world to be a world without peace. They want to be a world of chaos and anarchy, so that would facilitate the effort to rule the world. If you see a system which is rotten to the core, as we have today in the monetary system, the banking system, the economic system, what do? The answer is if you cannot offer a macro response because you don't have the power to change government, the other alternative is the micro response. The micro response is to return to the remote countryside and small communities and establish your own markets. And in your own micro markets, you do away with this bogus monetary system and return, for example, to gold and silver coins as money. Produce your own food and become self-sufficient. Question number 8. Riba or usury was forbidden to the Jews in the Torah, as it is forbidden in the Gospel and in the Qur'an. However, it is massively practiced today. You mentioned in one of your last videos, an international official institution believed to be respectable in their authority and that are in fact hiding a snake. Can you develop on this? The International Monetary Fund, which emerged out of the Bretton Woods Accord, is a money lender. Don't let the pretty language fool you. When Shakespeare wrote Merchant of Venice, and he identified Shylock the Jew as the money lender. In Merchant of Venice, Shakespeare was eloquent in his denunciation of the usurious economy. This is what we need today. To respond to the usurious economy today and the monetary system today, as eloquently as Shakespeare did it in The Merchant of Venice. I use the word the head of the snake for the money lender who lends you money in order to paralyze you in order to enslave you. That the first step on the road to slavery is to borrow money on interest. In the case of Shakespeare, he symbolized it with a pound of flesh, which was absolutely beautiful on his part. Brilliant. That usury is a pound of your brother's flesh. In the case of the Prophet Muhammad, Allah's blessings be upon him, he had a dream in which he saw usury as a river of blood, indicating that the money lender was a blood sucker. That's what we need today to get the Christian to understand that someone rewrote the Bible to make it permissible to lend money and interest to those who are not Jews. If you do that and you recognize that the Holy Book has been rewritten and this is a fabrication, you will then better be able to recognize the head of the snake and take a stick and beat that snake until you kill that snake. And that's what you do when you get out of the usurious economy and you free yourself from debts. Question number 9. The principle of trade lies in mutual profit, which is equivalent to mutualism in biology, whereas usury always leads to the enrichment of the one at the expense of the other, which is equivalent to parasitism in biology. This is well written. I commend this writer. Can we say that the holy books do in any way describe an organic mode of functioning of human society so that it benefits from a healthy economic life? Yes, indeed. Allah has spoken in the Qur'an and He has commanded us, don't consume each other's wealth unjustly. Rather, that business should be contracted in a manner which is mutual satisfaction. Mutual satisfaction. That I have a garage and you have a car. And you come to my garage with your car, I repair the car for you. And you pay me for my services, and the fee which I charge is one which is reasonable. I benefit from the transaction because I get an income. You benefit from the transaction because your car is repaired. I am happy and you are happy. That is business. This way of doing business engenders trust. And when once you've come to my garage and you've had your car repaired and you are satisfied with the business transaction, you would always want to come back to my shop, to my garage. When you can trust me in business, you will trust me in other things as well. That's what business does. It engenders trust. But then there's another kind of business. They call it business, but it is not business. When you want to lend money to me on interest, that's not business. No. In a business transaction, you take a risk. You can make a profit, or you can suffer loss. How many times do I have to repeat that? Let me do it one more time. The definition of a business transaction is that you embrace risk, that you can either make a profit or you can suffer loss. That is business. The money lender does not want to embrace risk. No. He doesn't want to do this kind of business. He wants a guaranteed profit, and he wants to be immunized from loss. That is not business. And so he lends on interest. And in the process of lending on interest, you no longer have mutual satisfaction. No. When he lends on interest, his gain will be my loss. And you see wealth being siphoned off from the rest of the world to the money lending world. The banks and those who own the banking institutions are growing richer and richer and richer and richer as wealth leaves the rest of the world and comes to them. This is not business. This is not trade. This is going to destroy the economy and destroy human happiness. The Qur'an is correct when the Qur'an prohibits money being lent on interest and also prohibits rip-offs. That justice must prevail in the market, and therefore you have to use money which is money with integrity, which is gold and silver coins, and not to take paper and make money, and make money out of thin air. That's false. Number 10, Mr. Putin insisted on the need for European countries to take back their independence. Can we speak of a form of postmodern slavery through debt? Most certainly. Debt is being used as a weapon today to enslave mankind. And the manner in which you can try to recover your freedom is to be free from debt. Question number 11. What is the ultimate goal of the moneylender? Answer, he wants to rule the world. He wants to do so on behalf of the State of Israel, so that Pax Judaica might replace Pax Americana. Question number 12. The French Prime Minister, the Greek Prime Minister Tsipras, I don't know if that's the way it's pronounced, he bowed to the moneylenders. What hope is left for Greece? On which alliance can Greece now rely? I believe that what is happening in Greece is what happened in Russia. That after 70, 80 years of communism in the Soviet Union and this massive attack on the Russian Orthodox Church and Orthodox Christianity, Russia is now in a state of transition, returning to her spiritual home. And in the process of returning to her spiritual home and recovering Orthodox Christianity, Russia is parting company from Western Europe. One can see that, for example, in the Russian response to homosexuality. That Western Europe, which wants to rule the world, is now enacting legislation allowing a man to marry another man. That is their ultimate goal now, to get all the world to do that. And Russia says no. Orthodox Christianity says no. It's a criminal act in Russia, homosexuality. What hope is there left for Greece? My view, and I can be wrong, is that Greece has a destiny. And Greece's destiny does not lie with those who enact legislation permitting the marriage of a man with another man. That the destiny of Greece is to go in the road that Russia is going. Return to your spiritual home, return to Orthodox Christianity, and denounce the marriage of a man with another man. And now the last question, no, there are many more. What is the future of economy? What is the only profitable, stable, and viable economic system in our time? If it were possible for us to restore a free and a fair market, then we could have hope for restoring a just economic system. A free and a fair market is incompatible with a fraudulent monetary system. What we are seeing now is the emergence of BRICS to challenge the bogus monetary system. The bandits who have given us the bogus monetary system are not prepared to accept defeat, and therefore they are preparing themselves to wage war on Russia and China, and that's the nuclear war that is coming. What is the world going to be like after that nuclear war? I don't know. What I do know is that there's going to be a much smaller world. That the two major powers, the Russian-Chinese alliance and NATO, are going to mutually self-destruct, the mutual destruction. And what is left of the world after that would be a world that the Zionists will find much more easy to control. That is the future that I'm seeing. And I want to thank you for this opportunity. Our time is up to offer these comments or the questions posed by Égalité and Reconciliation. And I hope that we have another time, sometime, to be able to do more than we've done today. Thank you and goodbye.